I was totally in love with the Calcutta chicken rolls and the egg rolls. India didn't have food brands at national scale. Even if you look at today, there are 5 brands which are more than 500 locations in India. All of them are imported from outside. And we are the first ones to get there, I guess, from India. It felt like something that we were really passionate about, food. Chicken roll especially, and that's how our first brand Faasos came about. Light bulb moment saying that, why don't we put a delivery-only kitchen from a first floor back alley and reduce our rental cost drastically and see what happens. We launched, pizza under Faasos, but then people didn't buy it and then we realized after talking to customers that people thought Faasos was for rolls or wraps, not for pizza. So they didn't believe that Faasos can make a great pizza. So we launched a different brand for pizza and that started working. And that got us that was a second light bulb moment that, people are looking for different options, but they are always looking for a brand who is known for that particular option. Like Starbucks is coffee, McDonald's is burger. Over time, Behrouz Biryani came, Ovenstory pizza came, Sweet Tooth came, Lunchbox came. China has 35 times more restaurants per capita than India. 35 times. There are 75 restaurant chains in the US that are more than 500 locations. India is the most unrestauranted country in the world. It's very, 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 very hard. I don't know if I knew how hard it would be. I don't know whether I would be an entrepreneur again.
Hello and namaste. Welcome to yet another episode of Founder Diaries, our series of podcasts where we take you through the journey of founders and their entrepreneurship. Today, we have with us Jaydeep Barman, CEO and co-founder of Rebel Foods, the first and only food brand in India to have attained a unicorn status. Thank you, Jaydeep, for having us. So, Founder Diaries is about the journey of an entrepreneur. So, first up, would like to ask you, if you could tell us a little about your background, your run-up to being a founder. What were your early years as a professional?
Well, very, very generic, like a million people in India. I'm an engineer and an MBA. And I was in consulting before, starting what we know as Rebel Foods now full-time, I was with McKinsey after my business school in London. And then, my daughter was just a couple of years old and both me and my wife were thinking about where to raise her, and that got me to take a sabbatical and come back to India and see, what I can do in India. And then, then Rebel Foods happened and I never went back to McKinsey after my sabbatical. So that's how it happened.
Right. An engineer and then an MBA. How did the idea of getting into the business of food?
I would say my earlier life would be mostly around football and food. So, and especially within food, I was totally in love with the Calcutta chicken rolls and the egg rolls. Every nook and cranny of Calcutta would have those. And when I started traveling, across India and then eventually across the world, I was always missing that one thing. And then I saw, the sort of growth of burgers and pizzas. And if you think about fast food, there is a very the common element in fast food is there is a base or a wrapper and there's a filling and or a topping. So pizza is a topping on a base. Burger is a filling within 2 pieces of bread. And if you think about the chicken rolls or the egg rolls of the world, it's very similar. You have a wrapper and a filling, right? So I was like, Kallol and I, my co-founder, we were like, why isn't there a chicken roll equivalent of fast food? Well, why this is not world famous? And then and India didn't have food brands at national scale. Even if you look at today, there are 5 brands which are more than 500 locations in India. All of them are imported from outside, and we are the first ones to get there, I guess, from India. So it felt like something that we were really passionate about, food, chicken roll especially, and that's how our first brand Faasos came about, and and then one thing led to another.
How were the early days? How did you bootstrap? How did you find your first investor?
Well, the real start of Faasos was when I was doing my first job back in 2003 in Pune, actually. And we put a hole in the wall, recruited a cook from Calcutta, and we started. It was not our, let's say, our livelihood, but we started like that. And then we went on to our, first business school, and then our jobs. Came back, and then saw that little hole in the wall doing okay, customers loving it. So we thought, okay, let's pick it from there and let's try to make something out of it. So that's how it started. So initially it was all bootstrapped in the sense, friends and family. And I still remember my first investor was Anand, who was my first boss back in the day. And then his dad also invested some money into us. And I would forever be indebted to Anand and his dad. But that's how we started, mostly friends and family. And then I think around 2011 or 2012, 2 years in, our first institutional investor came, which was Sequoia Capital at that point in time. And actually, I had a choice between Sequoia and then another term sheet we had. So it was just, I remember writing a one-pager to GV, who's from Sequoia, describing our business and why I believed that it could be a game changer. And people say that to get VC money, you have to do networking, you have to go to conferences, you have to know a lot of people. But it was just an email from me to GV and, nothing more than that. And GV replied within a day, and then we got talking and, they felt that it's worth investing in. But I had another term sheet around that time, and I never forget the day when Mike Morris actually called me up, the Sequoia head of fund at that point, the CEO of Sequoia at that point in time, and told me why I should take Sequoia money and not these other investors' money. And, and I don't think I had the ability to say no to Mike. So that's how our first institutional funding round happened with Sequoia Capital.
How many pitches before you really?
See, for that round, it was just that one email followed by, few conversations with GV and then, other Sequoia partners. I think about 7-8 meetings, 7-8,
and you didn't approach any other VCs before
There
that?
was another one, as I was saying, a couple more. I think in total at that point in time, I may have approached 4 VCs. And then we had 2 term sheets at that. But I'm talking about 2011-12, right? Today it's completely different, and there were not many VCs back then, to be honest. And I don't think there were any, not many sort of consumer tech founders also. Obviously, they were just the initial set of founders back then. But today it's a totally different ballgame altogether. I think, we were at the right time, at the right place. Just the opening up of Indian startup ecosystem 12 years back. So, yeah, I think I was lucky.
Right. Like you said that, today the capital has become commoditized. There is so much money waiting to be invested. So today, if a founder had to start off and make a pitch, what would be that one thing that you would suggest that they should be doing in their letter or a pitch to an investor?
See, and I have never been an investor. I had put some, in my small capacity, some money into some of the ex-rebel people. But I fundamentally believe that abnormal returns, and this is a concept that I read about from in a memo by Howard Marks, who is a great investor, is that if you think about a decision or let's say a business or something you want to do, people either agree with you or don't agree with you, and then eventually you can be right or wrong. you make abnormal return only when people don't agree with you, but you are right. You know? This is true for anything in life. Like even which stock to buy, which share to buy. If everybody agrees that something is a great share, then the price is already high. You don't make money. You only make money when people don't think something is great, but you know it is great and you prove to be right. Then only you make an abnormal return. I believe as an investor, investors are always looking for these stories where something which is, contrarian, something which is not mainstream, something that people don't agree with, but has an opportunity, if proven right, to create an abnormal return. That's the VC business is. That's what investors are always, alpha as we call, investors are looking for. So I believe as an entrepreneur, when you're pitching to a VC, your pitch should be something like that. Something that you have discovered that not many people agree with or have not, or not many people have seen. But you have an opportunity, a chance to create something out of it. That's what piques an investor's, antenna. Otherwise, it's like taking a McDonald's franchisee. Everybody knows it's going to do well. That's not a VC business. Because there is no abnormal return as such. Yeah.
So back in 2011-12, when you had started Faasos, what was the vision then? And has that vision played out, or you've had to make iterations to your own plans?
Well, it looks totally different now from back then. When we started with Faasos, we put this, small format high street stores. I, in fact, still have people coming to me and say, their student life, their first jobs, Faasos role were like saviors back then. So I'm grateful for these people to give us so much love back then. But then 2-3 years down the line, I would say, if I have to sort of condense the journey of last 12 years, I would say there were like three, as we call them, light bulb moments in our journey. The first one was around 2014, when we realized that in India, the rental cost on the high street is the highest in the world when you compare to the sales of that unit. Like, I'll give you a simple example. Like, Domino's in India spends 10 to 12% of its sales in rent. In US, Domino's spends only 5 to 6%. So India is twice more costly than, let's say, US in terms of real estate. And we were facing that challenge in 2014. Our rental costs were off the charts, we're not making money, etc. But then delivery was coming up, and more people were getting food delivered. So we had this, light bulb moment saying that, why don't we put a delivery-only kitchen from a first floor back alley and reduce our rental cost drastically and see what happens. And that worked, that worked in the sense that, our delivery sales kept increasing. We could afford a larger space. And that's how the real journey of Rebel Food started. So that was our light bulb moment number one. The light bulb moment number two was around 2016, we launched, pizza under Faasos. But then people didn't buy it and then we realized after talking to customers that people thought Faasos was for rolls or wraps, not for pizza. So they didn't believe that Faasos can make a great pizza. So we launched a different brand for pizza, and that started working. And that got us that was a second light bulb moment that, people are looking for different options, but they are always looking for a brand who is known for that particular option. Like Starbucks is coffee, McDonald's is burger. McDonald's, in fact, used to own Chipotle, but people don't know it. So that was the second blinding insight we had, the light bulb moment we had, that we have a kitchen which doesn't have a storefront, so nobody can say it's Faasos or whatever. From that kitchen, we can actually launch more brands. So, and then over time, Behrouz Biryani came, Ovenstory Pizza came, Sweet Truth came, Lunchbox came. Off late, we acquired Smoor, which is a dessert and chocolate brand from Bangalore. We now have the license to run Wendy's, world's second largest burger brand, on our platform. So the third sort of light bulb moment happened during COVID. When we realized that there are other restaurants who are facing the same real estate challenge, especially during COVID, when, dining came down, people are not going out, delivery grew and all of that. A lot of people came to us and said, can we put our brands into your kitchens and avoid actual real estate expansion? So we started working with Naturals Ice Cream, Mad Over Donuts, Anand Sweets. Some of these brands are now served from our kitchens. So from a sort of a pure play restaurant on the cloud company, we became a platform on which now we have our brands, licensed brands like Wendy's, and of course partner brands like, Mad Over Donuts, Naturals Ice Cream, Anand Sweets, etc. So I would say that's how our business evolved over time. So today we are in about 75 cities, about 400 odd kitchens. We are also in Middle East to some extent, and about 15 brands on our platform. So that has been the journey. I know it's a long story, but those were the seminal moments in our journey.
It's interesting how, you've taken us through the journey of in the growth of Rebel Foods. But if you could particularly talk about, hitting upon the TAM, because that's one problem that, most founders struggle with. Either it's PMF or TAM. How did you initially struggle with, finding? How did you know that Faasos is going to be successful? What were the iterations around that?
One thing we have realized over time that in food, people are not segments. Their use cases are. Let me explain. Like in any other consumer good, let's say cars. People either drive a Mercedes or a Maruti, not at the same time. Like hardly anybody who would drive a Mercedes in the evening and a Maruti in the morning and things like that. Or people fly first class or coach, not at the same time. Either you wear an Armani suit or a Polo Ralph Lauren t-shirt or a normal thing. Even in personal care, beauty, everywhere people talk about segments like premium segment, mass segment, this and that. In food, and that's why the TAM is defined in any other consumer goods in terms of number of people. But if you think about food, like if you and I, we go to a chai tapri and have a 20 rupee chai, but also we go to a fine dine restaurant. Like during meetings on weekday, we want to have a 150 rupee quick meal, and also splurge on a weekend when friends and family are over, we order, something fancy. So we realized that in our business, in food, actually it's the same person moves between different use cases. And the way we describe these use cases is on one axis, if you have single serve, group serve, the other axis value and luxury. So your single serve value is your weekday lunch. Something quick, not very fancy, cheap. Your group serve luxury is a weekend dinner, with friends and family. Your group sub value is your office snacks, like a pizza, or samosa, or whatever. Your single sub luxury is sushi or nasi goreng, and people move between this. So our TAM is actually massive because we run a platform. And our brands today, Behrouz is group sub luxury, Ovenstory is group sub value, Faasos is single sub value, Lunchbox is single sub value, Smoor is single sub luxury. So we are present in all of these. If you think about a one brand QSR in a neighborhood, their TAM is the number of people wanting to have a pizza or a burger. But for us, the TAM is the number of people multiplied by whatever they want to have. They want to have a burger, a biryani, a pizza, a dessert, a coffee. We are relevant. That's how we thought about TAM. So for us, for typically, when people define, okay, these many million people. But for us, these many million people multiplied by the 3 times of food that they have in a day. So natural, and I think this has been a journey. When we were a single brand, we were also this sort of number of people TAM. But as our brand portfolio grew, we became a platform. That's how our TAM evolved. And we believe it's an infinite canvas. Like tomorrow, like today, people have more biryani. 10 years down the line, people have more salads or vegan. We don't know. And we will have brands in health and, other categories. So our TAM, I believe, will continue to grow. As long as we keep this platform, as long as remain relevant to customers' life with respect to food. That's how we think about it.
Great. It's also interesting that a lot of D2C brands hit a wall when it comes to growing beyond a certain point, and there has been enough said about a lot of brands where breaking into the first 100 crore is easier, the 0 to 100 journey, but how do you grow them beyond that? So if you could share some insights from your own learnings as to how are you planning to grow each of these brands into and which are the newer growth areas that you're looking for Rebel?
There's been a journey, sort of discovering the pockets of opportunities in India. I'll give you a couple of instances. So one is geographical. I was born in Calcutta, and my first job was in Siliguri, like north of Bengal, where I used to sell TVs. And I remember I sold a TV in a dealership where electricity was not there. So that was like a folklore in my company at that point in time. But that was 20 years back. Today, some of our biggest, per unit sales are happening in tier 2, tier 3 cities. So we are in 75 cities, and we think we are just scratching the surface. Especially since India doesn't have brands, and India doesn't have, I'll give you some examples. China has 35 times more restaurants per capita than India. 35 times. There are 75 restaurant chains in the US that are more than 500 locations. India is the most unrestauranted country in the world. And within that, 60-70% unorganized. So when we enter a Coimbatore, an Amritsar, a Ludhiana, a Trichy, Mangalore, we see massive demand. And, our average order value is $5, let's say 400 rupees. Anybody in any middle class, which is like a couple of 100 million people across all these cities, can afford a 400 rupee meal on a weekly basis, at least. So the depth of the market, I am not a commentator of Indian economy, but I am seeing this firsthand as an entrepreneur, as our business is growing. So there are a lot of people who say that Indian consumer class is 10 million, 20 million. I don't agree. And my knowledge is not theoretical. My knowledge is practical. So when we enter cities, we see it happening with our brands day in, day out. We believe today there are 300 to 400 cities in India where our business would be viable. And we are only in 75 cities. And, we have we have 6 brands now, more than 100 crores. And all these brands are growing at a fast clip. So I am a big believer of, if you're thinking about like a 1 lakh rupee phone, then I don't know. But if you're talking about a 400 rupee occasion, I believe India has massive depth, and we are living it, through our own experience. So that's the geographical sort of opportunity in India, or the sort of the locational opportunity in India. The other piece, I was a Bengali. I am a Bengali, and I grew up on, our Sunday church used to be the mutton shop. So I'm a hardcore non-vegetarian. But over the last 10 years, I realized that how diverse the food culture of India is. So I never knew there were like 2 Navaratris in India when, 70% of India becomes vegetarian. I never knew there was something called Shravan in Maharashtra and North. I never knew there would be Onam, there would be, Pongal, and all these are tremendous opportunities to launch, new products, new offerings at scale. So today we have a Navaratri Thali that is available across 75 cities during Navaratri. It's a massive opportunity because, mother would be calling and saying, Beta, aaj Sindha namak wala hi khana. But where would you get it? You get it in lunchbox. And so we saw this festival-led, and India is being a secular country. It's a beautiful thing. You have Ramadan when we launch Halim. Valentine's Day, we launch a heart-shaped pizza or a sweet tooth dessert. Christmas, we launch a plum cake. Navratri, we launch Navratri Thali. Dasera, we launch something else. And, it's just going on. Onam, we are launching on Onam Thali. It's going on. And more I'm understanding India, more our team is understanding India, we are able to come and meet the customer with terrific offerings that they would love.
You've been here for almost 15 years now. If you have to tell me, or rather if I have to tell you to start all over again, which are the few things or the pitfalls you would avoid? What were the learnings?
It's an interesting question, but whatever were the learnings for us happened along the way. It's all hindsight. If I would start again today, maybe I'll start with a kitchen. But then we did the kitchen because we made a mistake. We went down a path that we should not have. But that mistake taught us something, and as a result, we did something else. So I don't know whether the journey would be different again if we start again. The one thing I must say is that it's very, 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 very hard. I don't know if I knew how hard it would be. I don't know whether I would be an entrepreneur again. And that is my honest admission. When we look back, the hardships that we went through, I mean, there were times when I could not, I never had a no food on the table kind of a situation, but there were things like I could not pay my daughter's school fees.
And a founder's journey can be very lonely in that sense, where, the people in your company always look up to you. But, for a founder, who do you look up to? Or who is your sounding board? If you have to bounce off ideas or anything personal, who are the people or the go-to people for you?
So I think within Rebel, one difference between, let's say, many other companies and Rebel is that out of the 8 people who run this company, the Exicom as we call it, 5 have been here, 2 are Kollol and I. The third is Piyush, who is our CFO, who has been here for 5 years. And then Amit, who has been here for 5 years. The rest, everybody has been here for 12 plus years. So we are more a bunch of co-founders, and all of these people are now co-founders. Because they built this company as much as I have done. In fact, more than me, I would say. So these were people who joined Rebel when they were 23, 24, 25. And they created this company. So we operate as a group of co-founders rather than I am the CEO and everybody reports to me. So I have, and this has been, so I was a mountaineer at one point in time. All my life, I always craved for atmospheres where a group of people coming together and doing something. And this is my biggest fortune, that at Rebel, we've been able to create such a group of people. And we are there for each other. So my big sounding boards are my co-founders like Piyush and others, and no holds barred. Every quarter we go off for a couple of days, and that's how we build this company. So unlike some CEOs, I am not a lonely person at Rebel. So we've been able to create that group of people who are winning and losing together. People say at Rebel, some of us have bonded and balded together. So that has been my good fortune. Outside of Rebel, there are a few people like Anand I was talking about. Anand is now, he runs India Quotient. So he's a VC now. The first check at Rebel was written by Anand. And even today, I go back to him, very, very frequently. Then there is a gentleman called Prashant Mehta who used to be with Lightbox. He left recently. He's been a great sounding board. GV from Sequoia Capital has been on our board for 12 years. He's been a tremendous sounding board. Every time I'm having some tough problem to solve, I'm calling GV. So I've been fortunate to have people like that to call up and speak to.
Right. How important is also spirituality? Because you need to find some strength within, because like you spoke about days when, you were struggling to pay fees. There were days when, you're trying to figure out things, fix the broken processes. So, where did you find that inner strength from?
As I was saying, I was a mountaineer when I was younger. But over the last 5 years, I have made it a point to go away to the mountains once a year. So either for climbing, like this March, I was in Patagonia in Chile. And I have made it a point that every year I would go away for 15 to 20 days and be in the mountains. And that has been, game changer for me.
It's meditative?
No, it's physical work, and what happens is because I have to go for a climb or a trek once a year, I am practicing throughout the year. So I'm 6 days a week, I'm running in the morning, I'm doing some strength exercise, etc., etc. So this whole, and 7-8 years back, I didn't do this. I was getting fatter, and I was getting, my energy was getting sapped. About 5 years back, I decided I'd go to mountains and I'd be prepared to go to mountains. When we put these two things together, it brought a certain amount of calmness in my life. Like the morning run, it's almost meditative for me. I've created this, I'm a follower of Zen, not that I practice tremendously. There is this one thing that I follow very, very particularly of Zen, which is, to control your mind as well as to control people. The best way to do that is to watch them. You watch your mind gets calmer. Same with people. You watch people, the people get freedom to do what they want. If you try to micromanage them, if you try to micromanage your mind, you are screwed. If you ignore your mind, you are screwed. Same for people. If you micromanage your people, people don't stick with you. They don't enjoy. If you ignore your people, they don't enjoy. But if you watch your people, like your mind, it works. So that has been a big learning from Zen. But other than that, this, morning running ritual, 5 to 6 days a week, going off to mountains once a year, these have been, the sources of strength.
Right, that's pretty interesting. The last question before we wrap up, what's the end game? Where does Rebel go from here? If you have to take us into, the future, 5 years, 10 years from now, where do you really see Rebel growing?
So, it's interesting that you talk about end game, but I think we are drawing on an infinite canvas. And it might sound far-fetched, it might sound like, the guy is talking through his nose or something like that. But if you really think about our business, we have an operating system on top of which we can create brands. This can go on forever. Like tomorrow we can have a health brand. I don't know, 50 years down the line, someone else would be managing Rebel, and so there will be some different team, but a new food trend will come and will still be relevant. Unlike a, one brand company, we don't have a shelf life, We can keep doing it as long as people are eating. I don't think there'll be a day when people will be downloading food or, have a tablet and be satisfied. Food is, probably the only thing that has been going on since the time human beings came to being. So I believe we are drawing on an infinite canvas. And that's how I want to think about our business. I don't want to think about what is the end game, when I am going to retire. I have nothing. That doesn't matter for Rebel, right? We've created a model where we can keep drawing on this canvas. After me, there would be, there are already many people at Rebel who are better than me. And they would be taking over. There will be more people who would be taking over. As long as we keep drawing on this infinite canvas, I think we can go on forever as long as people would be eating.
Right. So Rebel is all slated to go on forever. On that note, thank you so much, Jaydeep, for making time and speaking to us. Keep watching Live Mint for more such content. Thank you.